I'm Joshua Moore, a member of this fellowship and service leader this morning. My pronouns are he and him. We gather today on unceded lands of the Muskogee Nation of Florida. We are grateful for that land. The UU Fellowship of the Emerald Coast is a religious community united by UU principles and committed to service, spiritual growth, and caring fellowship. If you're visiting today, you'll find more information about us on the back of your order of service or on our website. Please fill out a visitor card at the blue table by the front door so that we can connect with you and send you information about upcoming events. Each of us here comes into this place with our own stories. So many moments, so many ups and downs. And each decision we make, great or small, in each inevitable event, the stories of our lives are written on the pages of our past. But here, in this place, in this moment, our stories are not many, but one. May you find inspiration and hope in this, our shared story. Please refer to your order of service for upcoming services and announcements. And join us for a second-hour informational meeting for updates on the search committee, on the ministerial search committee. And this is going to be promptly at 11:15, I have been told. On the dot. Get your butts in seats. So. And we'll have any questions that we can ask. You can ask us. We'll have some updates about our progress. And we'll have a little thing that we'd like you to fill out so you guys can tell us where you think we're at as a fellowship. And there is a QR code on your thing if you want to look at it beforehand. And I have one more announcement from our DRE, Sarah. She wanted to say something before we proceeded.
Hey y'all. So I don't know if any of you guys have heard, but this past week there was this initiative by state representatives or whoever that in 9 of our state parks, including Topsail and Grayton Beach, that's in our immediate area, they're planning to build pickleball courts, hotels, golf courts, all manner of things at these locations. And so basically, in my work as an artist, a lot of it focuses around native Florida plants and animals, conservation, etc. So a lot of people, like an overwhelmingly large amount of people, actually rose up and fought back and sent in so many letters to state representatives, and it actually did something. So now they're rescheduling the meeting that was for Tuesday to the week of September 2nd. So if you guys are super gung-ho about keeping natural spots in Florida, then I highly encourage you to kind of keep up to date with that and plan on attending the meetings.
Thank you so much. I would also like to remind you all to silence your phones if you would. I just had to do that. I would hate to be I'd hate to be the one that forgot. And now the prelude prepares us for the service. I'd like to invite my son, Yeshua, up here to help me with the lighting of the chalice. Oh, I forgot to do the thing. Hold on, buddy.
We're getting to there.
Not this one. Thank you for your patience. You're welcome. Thank you. With humility and courage born of our history, we are called as Unitarian Universalists to build the beloved community where all souls are welcome as blessings. And the human family lives whole and reconciled. With this vision in our hearts and minds, we light our chalice. It's a little deep there. Thank you. Chicken. Now please rise if you are able for the opening hymn 1023 in the small teal hymnal, sing Building Bridges. The words will also be on the screen. And it is around, so at some point this side of the room is going to follow Amanda here, and this side is going to follow me. I think we're going to sing it through once before that all together, and then Amanda will help signal for the round. And now it is the time for all ages. Any children that want to can come up to the front. You are totally welcome. And make sure you share the seats. I know it can be hard.
So this one is called A Lamp in Every Corner, about how we can all join and bring our light together. Many years ago, in the land of Transylvania, in a mountain valley watered by quick rushing streams and shadowed by great forests of beech trees, there was a village of small wooden houses with dark shingled roofs. The people in the village were of the Unitarian religion, and they wanted a church of their own, A church set on the hillside, they decided, looking down upon the village as a mother looks down upon her sleeping child. So all the people of the village labored long and hard to build themselves a church. The stonemasons hammered sharp chisels to cut great blocks of great stone, and then set the stones into stout and sturdy walls. The glaziers made tiny glass panes and fitted them neatly into the windows with leaded lines. The foresters sawed tall beech trees into enormous beams and laid the trusses for the ceiling, then covered the roof with the close-fitting wooden shingles that wouldn't leak a drop of rain. The carpenters carved wood for the pair of wide-opening doors, setting them on strong pegs so that the doors hung straight and square. A bell was brought from a faraway city, then hoisted by ropes with a heave and a hoe and to the top of the tower. The weavers wove fine cloths for the altar table, cloths embroidered with flowers and edged with lace. The smiths hammered black iron into tall lampstands and hammered thin bronze into shining oil lamps. Finally, when the building of the church was done, the painting of the church could begin. The painters mixed bright colors, royal red and shimmering gold and brilliant blue, and everyone in the village, old and young, women and men, boys and girls, came to decorate their church. They painted flowers, they painted trees, they painted designs around the windows and the different designs around the doors. At the end of the day, when it was finished, when their church was finally done, all the people of the village stood back to admire it, and then to sing a song of happiness and praise. Their village had a church now, a church set on the hillside looking down upon the village as a mother looks down upon her sleeping child. "We will eat now," announced an elder of the village, because everyone was hungry after a long day's work. "And later tonight, we will come back to pray." So the people of the village went down the hillside to their homes and their suppers, all except one little girl named Zora and her father, who stayed behind. They had brought their own bread and cheese. They ate their food slowly, sitting on the grass on the hillside and admiring their new church with its strong stone walls, its tall tower, and its magnificent bell. After they had eaten, they went back inside, opening those carved wooden doors to the gloriously painted sanctuary inside. "Oh, look, Father," Zora cried, running from picture to picture with her footsteps echoing off the stone walls. "See how pretty the church is." She stopped in the center of the church and twirled slowly around. "See how grand." "Yes, it is," said her father, looking around and nodding with pride. "Yes, it is." "But, Father," she said suddenly, "we have not finished." "What do you mean?" "There are tall iron lampstands all along the walls, but there are no lamps. The church will be dark when people come back." "Ah, no, little one," said her father. "The light of the church comes from its people. You shall see." He rang the bell to call the people to worship, then took his daughter by the hand and led her back outside. They waited on the grassy hillside next to their beautiful church of strong gray stone. The sun had set behind the mountains, and night was coming soon. Yet, in the growing darkness, tiny points of light came from many directions and moved steadily up the hill. "Each family is entrusted with a lamp, little one," her father explained. "Each family lights its own way here." "Where's our family's lamp?" "Your mother is carrying it. She will be here soon." The many lights moved closer, gathering into one moving stream, all headed the same way, growing larger and brighter all the time. Zora's mother arrived, bearing a burning oil lamp in her hands. The father lifted Zora so she could set their family's lamp high on its tall iron stand. All around the church, other families were doing the same. Soon, the church was ablaze with light in every corner, for all the people of the village had gathered to pray and to sing. All through the worship service, Zora watched lights flicker and glow. She watched her family's lamp most of all. When the service was over, her father lifted her high. She took the shining bronze lamp from the lampstand. Its curved sides were warm and smooth in her hands. Her mother carried the lamp home, with the flame lighting the way. The lamp flame lit their house when they returned home. Zora washed her face and got ready for bed by the light of that flame.
Mother, Zora began as she climbed into bed and lay down. Yes, little one? Her mother asked, tucked the red wool blanket around Zora's shoulders. Father said the light of the church comes from its people. Yes, but also the people take their light from the church. Over the table by the fireplace, the shiny bronze lamp was still burning, and we have that light every day. Yes, indeed, said her mother. And even when we are not in church, even when the lamp is not lit, we carry the light of truth in our minds and the flame of love in our hearts to show us the right way to be. That light, the light from truth and love, will never go out. Never? Asked Zora. Never, said her mother. And this bronze lamp will last for many, many years. When you are grown, we will give the bronze lamp to you, and when your children are grown, you will give the lamp to them, and all of you will carry it back and forth to church every time. But there is only one lamp, Zora said, so make another, and let the light grow. And someday, tell your children to make more lamps too. And now, good night, her mother said, and kissed Zora once on the cheek, and once on that cheek, and once on the forehead. Zora closed her eyes and drifted into dreams, while her mother looked down upon her sleeping child. The years passed, Zora grew. The bronze lamp came into her care. She kept it polished and clean, and when the bell rang out across the valley to call the people to worship, she carried the lamp back and forth to the church on the hillside, the flame always lighting her way. When the time came, she made more lamps and gave them to her children, who made more lamps and gave them to their children, and so it went on through the years, even until today. And always, the light of truth and the flame of love from the Unitarian Church on the hillside continue to grow and show them, and us, the way. And just a reminder, if you guys have kiddos that are coming to the back and picking them up at the end, just remember to sign in in the sign-in sheet and sign them out once you pick them up before second hour begins. And if they're going to second hour, sign them in, sign them back out. And if your kiddos are coming with me and Miss Holly, then I'll see you guys in the back.
I tell you what, I love that story. A revered tradition in our fellowship is the sharing of personal joys, milestones, and concerns during our service. This is a sacred time. It is for individuals who are experiencing truly significant events in their lives. We invite you to come forward, place a pebble in the bowl, and share silently or in a few words. Through this brief ritual, we deepen our connection to one another. I invite you now to take a few deep breaths, to settle your body, relax your muscles. It's easy to become overwhelmed, especially in this time that we live in, where we are bombarded on all sides by so much stuff. Good news, bad news, trivial or really not. Alone, it can feel as if there is nothing that we can do to fix anything or help anyone. But you're not alone. Right now, you are surrounded by a community that, like you, desires to help others, to fix what is broken. I invite you to sit for a moment in silence, to breathe together and rest in the knowledge that you are not in this alone. Spirit of life, Spirit of love. While we may think and feel as individuals, we know that we are in fact deeply interconnected, so intertwined as to not be separate at all, bound together and held by a love greater than ourselves. Not outside of us, but deep within each and every one of us. May that love pull us ever more toward compassion, and may our compassion spur us ever onward toward justice. Amen. Generosity is a spiritual practice to us you use, and our fellowship is supported entirely by pledges and donations. If you are paying your pledge today, please mark your check in the memo line that it is your pledge. If this is your first time here, please feel comfortable to pass the plate along. We are really just glad to see you. After the song of dedication, we will share cash and undesignated checks with our August Share the Plate partner, the Okaloosa County branch of the NAACP. Your generosity is appreciated. This is a poem called A Ritual to Read to Each Other. And I want you to think about it. Maybe not just let it wash over you, but think about how it makes you feel. It will come up later. It's not a quiz, I promise, but if you latch on to something that really spurs your thought, keep that. We will be hearing this poem again. If you don't know the kind of person I am, and I don't know the kind of person that you are, a pattern that others made may prevail in the world, and following the wrong God home, we may miss our star. For there is many a small betrayal in the mind, a shrug that lets the fragile sequence break, sending with shouts the horrible errors of childhood, storming out to play through the broken dam. And as elephants parade, holding each elephant's tail, but if one wanders the circus, won't find the park. I call it cruel, and maybe the root of all cruelty, to know what occurs, but not recognize the facts. And so I appeal to a voice, to something shadowy, a remote, important region in all who talk. Though we could fool each other, we should consider, lest the parade of our mutual life get lost in the dark. For it is important that awake people be awake, or a breaking line may discourage them back to sleep. The signals we give, yes or no, maybe, should be clear. The darkness around us is deep. Now we will hear a sermon from, sorry, I have her name. I thought I wrote it down. By Reverend Sharon K. Dittmer of the Wider Fellowship, called The Signals We Give.
William E. Stafford was born in Kansas in 1914, and though very talented, he was a late bloomer. From 1942 to 1946, he lived with other conscientious objectors in work camps in Arkansas and California. He published for his first book of poetry at the age of 48. The reviewer Gerald Burns wrote that Stafford's poems about humanity detail, quote, what relation is possible between us and the frightening land buried under all that asphalt, and how such a peculiar people as ourselves can live together with something like dignity. How countercultural to write about the challenge of human contact, communication, and dignity for all. I love Stafford's poems because they are disconcerting, and they seem to point towards a moral compass I forgot to remember. He never offers quick solutions or easy answers. Every poem, every time, I need to sit. What does it mean? What does it mean to me now? What about it makes me uneasy? Because there is often something about his poems that will make me uneasy. And I go further to ask, what is my place in this world? In a world of speed and urgency, high speed this and that, social media and multiple platforms, everything goes so fast. I can't be the only person in the room who remembers a day without cell phones. I miss those days. I was the last minister I knew not to have a cell phone. I waited so long that I outlasted pagers. I never had one of those either. I did not want to be found while I was driving or out walking or during dinner. I wanted, and I still want, to do one thing at one time. When I take too much in, I become a facile, careless processor. I disregard who I am and follow I am not always sure what or where. Nowadays, I feel like I blur and slide through the world from one event, call, post, email, and picture to another. I struggle to sometimes lead rather than merely follow or react. And I wonder what patterns I repeat, which gods I follow, and if there are small betrayals in my mind. I think of this especially in an election year, as Americans divide farther into their camps. In a recent episode from the science podcast Hidden Brain, host Shankar Vedantam interviews Kurt Gray, University of North Carolina social psychologist, researcher, and teacher. Gray researches how the human mind works when it feels under attack, particularly during political polarization. As much as I think my political opinions have been rigorously tested and remain well informed, I actually had doubts after this segment. And instead of assuming I had it all figured out, I began to wonder what I have assumed, what I might have missed, what else might not be true. According to Gray, humans think their, quote, side is smart and wants policy to help themselves and others. Moreover, we think our opponents are stupid and don't appreciate what is best for themselves or the country. Vedantam listened to Gray speak and noted that we think others are sheep people, stupid, simple, ignorant, easily misled. Wrong. I ask you to consider if any part of any opinion you hold includes the belief that others who do not agree with you are sheep people. I was embarrassed at the times I have thought in general that people who disagree with me are ignorant. Our brains truly are deceiving. According to Gray, we overestimate how much our opponents dislike us by 50 to 300%. Let me repeat that. According to Gray, we overestimate how much our opponents dislike us by 50 to 300%. And the more partisan we are, the more we inflate ideas about hatred from the other side. And no, it's not just other people who do that. It's you and me. In addition, when we think people will hate us, we are more apt to cloak ourselves as victims and the other side as villains. Apparently, our brains like this model because it is cognitively simple and our brains yearn for order. If we stretch this out, the consequences are actually spectacular. Please let your mind take a stroll through the personal, family, work, local, national, and world conflicts of your choosing and consider the impact if what even a portion of Gray says is true. What would it mean if we're inflating it by 50%, 100%, 300%? I do think that some of us are in a fight for survival in this world. I do think lives and livelihoods are at risk. And my guess is that even those of us here today with our shared UU values, though, would not agree about what or who those are. Moreover, some of us with more privilege, such as myself, a white, heterosexual, cisgender, middle-aged woman with a college education, have more privilege and power. So attempting to change our thoughts and take alternative approaches is less risky if we have more power and privilege. So we should take some risks first. Gray notes that compromise means we need to talk with one another, and it is hard to listen or talk when it feels like a fight for survival. For years now, though, I've actually been interested in what people who do not think like me actually believe. The more older I get, the more I realize I don't know. And so I love the writing of Stafford because he often writes about complicated moral issues without religious or political trappings. For me, his words are a relief as I slide through the blur of work and images, following too easily in line after others. I invite you to read Stafford's poem again, this time with another voice or other voices. Pause the recording
Rose,
so you
could
can
pause
listen
it?
to the voices of others.
That means we need a volunteer. So anyone who loves to read poetry, I have it right here, and we'd love to hear you read it. Nobody run up too quick. You can come up, Julian, if you want. I see you raising your hand. Please. Save these people. Yeah. It's this and then this last stanza on the back.
Okay, got it. If you don't know the kind of person I am, and I don't know the kind of person you are, a pattern that others made may prevail in the world, and following the wrong God home, we may miss our star. For there is many a small betray in the mind, a shrug that lets the fragile sequence break, sending with shouts the horrible airs of childhood, storming out to play through the broken dike. And as elephants parade, holding each other elephant's tail, but if one wanders, the circus won't find the park. I call it cruel, and maybe the root of all cruelty, to know what occurs but not recognize that fact. And so I appeal to a voice, to something shadowy, a remote, important region in all who talk. Though we could fool each other, we could consider, lest the parade of our mutual life get lost in the dark. For it is important that awake people be awake, or a breaking line may discourage them back to sleep. The signals we give, yes or no, or maybe, should be clear. The darkness around us is deep.
And now we get to, and this is all optional, but I would encourage everyone to take part. Turn to a neighbor, and we're going to take just a few minutes to share with each other. And here's some things to think about. What words stand out for you about this poem? What about the poem makes you uneasy? What is your favorite part and why? And you don't have to use those, but just talk to each other about what this poem strikes in you. Give it 3 or 4 minutes. Wow, that was fun. I enjoyed hearing all of you guys talk. That's quite interesting. Rose, could we hit play? Thank you.
Others. Now that you've heard from Stafford again, turn to a neighbor and share what words stand out for you in this poem. What words stand out for you?
I got ahead of her, sorry.
Consider also, what about this poem makes you uneasy? What about this poem makes you uneasy? And finally, what's your favorite part and why? It is, of course, fine not to participate with a partner in this exercise for any reason without having to explain yourself. You could choose to write or silently reflect. If you are worshiping in person and need some place to hear better, please remove yourself from the sanctuary to find a quiet spot with a partner. If you're from a historically marginalized identity and would like to speak with someone who might share some of your identities, feel free to search for those people. And if you're online and are interested, you could move into a breakout room with a partner, or you could comment in the chat feature. Pause the recording again to listen and display the text on screen so everyone can see it, reflect, and listen.
I think we have one more. If you hit play. Sorry, guys.
Would anyone like to share an aha they had, either in their journaling or a comment they saw in the chat or from a conversation they had with someone else? I'll pause again so you can listen to some of your ahas.
Does anyone want to share anything? You don't have to, but if anyone had something that was really awesome. You want to share, Julian? I would love that. That's a great question. Did you want to share something, bud? Thank you. Yeah. That's a great question. Yeah. That is an aha. I love that. Anybody else? Please. You could follow the wrong God home, as it said. Wow, thank you guys. That's great. Interacting with each other. I think we can hit play, Rose. See if I got it right this time.
Andrew Gibson is a poet, writer, activist, performer, and the current poet laureate for the state of Colorado. They were born in Maine in 1975 and are a survivor of chronic Lyme disease and ovarian cancer. In 2023, their cancer returned. Gibson is the only poet I regularly read, and they write about living deeper and more honestly and joyfully than almost anyone I can remember. Their gift shop has sweatshirts that read, "Awkward is awesome." Gibson writes, within a gender binary. I've never in my life really felt like a woman, and I've certainly never felt like a man. I look at gender on a spectrum, and I feel somewhere on that spectrum that's not landing on either side. This morning, you're either going to watch a video by Gibson from their Instagram channel. It is entitled The Land of I Don't Know.
Years ago, my therapist and I were talking about something that I had done that I really regretted. And she said, you know, I think most people are doing the best they can just about all the time. And I said, well, then most people's best is terrible. And she said, right. But that doesn't mean that they're not doing their best. And for many years, I had nothing but resistance to this idea. I feared that it would lead to a lack of accountability. I feared that if I believed people were doing their best, I would have more compassion for folks doing harm than for those who are impacted by that harm. And then a couple of months ago, while on a podcast, I was asked how I defined a good person, and my answer surprised me. I didn't say someone who is kind. Instead, I said someone who is trying to be kind. And I want to pose a question for you today. If you were to believe that people in general were doing the best they can just about all the time, how would that impact your beliefs about the most effective ways to create a more just, compassionate, loving, and peaceful world? That question, it stretches my mind so much. It's like a yoga class for my psyche and in turn my spirit. It transports me from the land of I know to the land of I don't know, which is to me the most fertile land in existence.
Please turn towards a neighbor and share your thoughts about the questions below. And it will help again if the text of the video is
Which
displayed.
it won't be, but
First,
could we
what
pause?
words or
Oh, she did.
phrases
Let her speak it, actually.
stand out for you?
What words or phrases?
What words or phrases stand out for you? And second, and I'm quoting Gibson here, if you were to believe that people in general were doing the best they can just about all the time, how would that impact your beliefs about the most effective ways to create a more just, compassionate, loving, and peaceful world? And when and if you answer that second question, please do the work of imagining that the first part is actually true so you can be challenged by that second part. Again, feel free to look for a partner who might share more of your identities. Leave the room if you need to hear better. Write on your own, be silent, comment in the chat, or move into a breakout space. And no need to repeat what you did before. You could try something new this time. Again, pause the recording and listen to yourself or others.
All right, we'll pause and we have 3 or 4 more minutes. And I can read that once again just to give it all in your head. So this is the question. If you were to believe that people in general were doing their best that they can, just about all of the time, how would that impact your beliefs about the most effective ways to create a more just, compassionate, loving, and peaceful world? Talk amongst yourselves. I know what's going on in my Sorry, folks, it has to end sometime. You can hit play.
Are there any ahas someone would like to share? Anything that came forward for you as you wrote or listened or thought? Pause the recording again.
You can pause it. And if you would like to come up here and speak into the microphone, I think that would be the most effective. But you can come up here, Julian. I would love to hear. I see you raising your hand. It's always welcome. Anybody else can come up and line up too if they want to say something. Anything that came to you.
I know this might not apply to some people because I'm still in school, but with homework or like grades, if you get a C on something like homework, and if they say why aren't you doing your best, it might hurt you. Instead of saying do you need help with it, do you require extra things? So that's what I thought, or that's what my mother thought.
Thank you for sharing your mom's aha. Is anybody else? Rose wants to share. You come up here. Please. No, you can just yell if you want. Yeah. Thank you. And you don't have to come up if you don't want to.
This is not a good thing for introverts.
You're fine.
People call me a pessimist. I call myself a realist. But I'm not doing my best every day. I have chronic depression. I have CPTSD from childhood trauma. If I expect from others what I expect from myself, people are going to fail because I'm trying hard to be the best, which is also part of trauma. But I honestly don't think everybody is out there doing the best they can. We're just trying to survive and get through the day.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody sharing. Did you want to say something, please?
I just want to say, this really hit me hard. Just on a personal level, I think I would, and I need to forgive people all at once.
Yeah. I would just like to share my own thoughts really briefly on it, which is that I think we are very quick to give ourselves the benefit of the doubt when we know how bad our day has been, our week has been, our year has been. We know what we're going through, and so if we mess up or we fall short, it's easy for us to justify it, but as soon as we see someone else get out of line, we're usually very quick to judge them. So I think for myself, I like to remind myself that I don't know what other people are going through and where they're at. So if we could listen to the final bit.
The first time I reflected on the question, quote, if you were to believe that people in general were doing the best they can just about all the time, how would that impact your beliefs about the most effective ways to create a more just, compassionate, loving, and peaceful world? I just stopped short. I really could not take it in. I thought to myself, there is no way that insert politician name or country or political party is doing their best. Then I did what I just asked you to do. I actually imagined that the first part was true. And over time, I actually came up with things that surprised me for the second part of that question. Well, I would have to slow down for one thing. I would have to listen longer and deeper in hopes that I could understand the core values of people who do not agree with me. I would have to seek out more spaces with people unlike me, and I'd have to spend time in them and with people I found there. I would need to creatively look for areas where I did share, quote, ground with people who do not agree with me. I would have to stop saying to myself out loud that people who don't agree with me are stupid or evil or don't care about democracy. I would have to treat people who don't agree with me with dignity. I would have to separate the totality of all political party views from individuals who are members of that party, because just like people who go to church, people who belong to a political party do not always agree with all parts of the party platform. I would have to practice more wonder, and I would have to act in hope. And I recently tried this, and I will be honest, I really listened, I really tried, but I also had to admit, sometimes I just don't share basic groundwork with people. But I didn't go in assuming that. I went in thinking, if I tried to find some, maybe I would. And I did find some, but honestly not enough for the conversation at hand. I don't regret the exercise, though. I feel relief that I know I really tried. Instead of making it simple or easy or simplistic for me, I actually really challenged myself, and I actually took the time to fully, respectfully listen to another and thank them for sharing their viewpoints. Somewhere I read that the morning William Stafford died, he had written a poem containing the lines, "You don't have to prove anything." My mother said, "Just be ready for what God sends." At the rate of communication and information today, I don't think that I or anyone else have made much space for what God, if we believe in God, or the universe sends. It's more likely that hurtling through space with our noses lowered to a paper or book or platform or our phone, we have missed multiple stars. But what is actually out there if we choose to think deeper? What is out there if we stop following, lift our heads and pause to look around? Who would we find on the way, and what would we learn? Who are we when we hold multiple truths, some irreconcilable, and rest actually within that dissonance? What happens when we listen to our neighbors, particularly the ones with different opinions? Could we be pencils in need of erasers? For those of us like myself with more privilege and power, we actually should try this first. Others need to be more cautious for their safety and well-being. Please note that if we partake in this work, I did not say we need to compromise our values and agree with other people on all points. We just need to respectfully listen. Nor did I suggest we place ourselves in situations where we will be unsafe, ridiculed, or harmed. I just suggested we find spaces to consider the respectful thoughts of other people, particularly the ones with whom we disagree. And just because we can't think of one space where that might be in this moment, it doesn't mean it would not be worth the try. You don't have to prove anything. Just be ready. Just be ready.
Please rise if you are able for our closing hymn, number 1017 in the Teal hymnal, Building a New Way. we extinguish this chalice each week so that it can be relit when we come together again. In continual rebirth, the flame is renewed along with our hopes and our dreams, our cares and our concerns. May its light burn within you, inside out, so that others may share in its loving warmth. Please remain seated for the postlude.